It's coming soon, and that soon will be tomorrow. We will have the premiere of Hero, The Extraordinary Life of Mr. Ulric Cross, premiering right here on TTT at 9 p.m. And we will have Mr. Cross in the form of Nickolai Salcedo joining us this morning here on the Now Morning Show. Nickolai, welcome back.
Yeah.
Because you're always here. It's always a pleasure to have you.
It's my second home at this point.
At this point, he can put his foot across the chair, we lounging. But we're making sure that we continue to represent our icons.
Yeah.
Who knew that this was such an incredulous story to be told? Well, at least Imagine Media did.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting you on board, talk to me from script in hand to being on screen. What was that journey like to find out about this extraordinary man?
Ulric was, I always tell people Ulric is a story. Hero is a story that really changed a lot of my perspectives on craft, acting and whatnot. That was the first lead role I had in a film and the first time I had to actually carry a story on my back, film-wise. And yeah, just getting, that was those situations in life where it's like, you're presented with so many things to overcome in a moment that it breaks you.
Oh boy.
And then you actually build from there.
Of course, make or break, you did both.
I did both, and I think that's generally the better thing is because that breaking point of shedding an old self and really just stepping into a new iteration of who you are. So yeah, getting the script in hand, going through the process of filming and meeting all the other actors and whatnot, and actually getting onto screen, seeing it with an audience, hearing their reactions and feeling all the, the discomfort of watching yourself in third person.
Still?
Yeah. For me, it's, I don't think that's something I ever fully got accustomed to. I mean, I was in a film that Yao Ramesar did, this film festival. And that's the first time that I ever looked at myself on screen and felt like, okay, all right, cool.
It's fine.
I'm okay.
65 years later, all right, no problem.
but regularly, for me it's, because it's weird watching yourself in third person.
Right, because you are portraying an entirely different
And pretending you're watching yourself in third person, pretending to be somebody else.
Well, if I may say, you did an exceptional job on this one.
Gracias.
I had the pleasure of being there for the premiere and sharing in the excitement, not so much the discomfort, and the reveal of this incredible story. And what we came away with is a grand sense of, Trinise and everything we like, so for real. But also that we have real giants walking amongst us. And some giants also joined you on that cast.
Yeah, definitely.
So when those sorts of experiences were shared, I imagine that was the better part. Not the break, but the make part.
No, yeah, that was, I wouldn't even say that was the make part.
Fair.
For me, that was just...
icing on the cake.
Yeah, that was just that was a moment where, like, for me, even like meeting Joseph Marcel and stuff, and just that was a coming full circle. That was just like, oh wow, all right, cool, we're here. That was a bit surreal.
Your peers. Wow.
And they were also very gracious and accommodating of me being somewhat of a novice at the time.
Right.
It was just really exciting and interesting, and just watching how people would react to them.
Right.
I think was more the cool part of it for me. Now I'll be like, oh, wow, and I'm just sitting around having a coffee with them, talking about,
chilling.
Yeah.
Average day. Hero does an incredible job of not just blending, of course, the legendary actors and actresses together, but also in terms of the visuals, because they used actual visuals from historic, archival footage, and pieced it with the modernized, the film version. So without giving away too much, what I may already have, I think there are several high points to Hero, and so if you were to think of maybe a top two, I'm giving you two options to tell people as to why they should tune in tomorrow night.
I mean, I'm not going to give away anything from the film. I would just say instead, look, to me it's a story for all Trinbagonians. To me it's a story for Caribbean people. It's also a story for African peoples, I think, from throughout the diaspora.
Right.
And I would extend that even beyond the African diaspora, again, to just wider Caribbean and people who coming from the global south, as they call it now, or whatever.
Really?
Developing world and whatnot. Because really the story is about a bunch of people coming from formerly colonized nations or nations that were still colonized at the time, and using the weapons, or rather, let me not say weapons, let me say using the tools created by the colonizers, legalities, because that's what Ulric was. He was a lawyer, to really draft new ways forward for all of us. So what Ulric and George Padmore and CLR James at the time were involved with was drafting a constitution for the United States of Africa. That is all I'm gonna say. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I'm gonna say.
Like an entire generation of persons already going to watch it for sure.
For me, and that's a big part of the film, because what people really knew Ulric for, I think before this film, a lot of people celebrated Ulric as being a war hero. And Francis Anne really did not want to go more into, how we fought for the Europeans
countries,
only to get ignored in the end. So she was like, hey, there's a bigger story behind this guy. There's a bigger story that's dealing more with a movement that was really international, still is very much international, and whose reverberations are still being felt today. If we look at BRICS, if we look at what's happening in Africa right now with the numerous schools pushing towards the United States of Africa, those kinds of things that are happening internationally, is what the film really deals with. Even the reactions we got showing it in the UK from, people from all over, like people from Africa living in the UK, watching it, the emotional responses we got. There was a Palestinian young lady. It's just so many people were connecting on so many levels with the story.
And we will be able to connect in many ways as well, because as much as it's premiering on TTT tomorrow night at 9 p.m., there are other ways to find it, yes?
Yes, because it's on BBC Two and Amazon Prime as well. It's been on Amazon Prime for some time.
Everywhere.
Yes,
To think that a Trinbagonian man was so instrumental in such a big movement, as you say, the ripple effects of which we are still feeling, is an incredulous thing, and you definitely want to tune in to find out about that. But I want to ask about the Windrush. What you were educating me during the debate. So very quickly, because I mean, those are other conversations that are being, telling our stories.
Yeah. Windrush, so the Windrush generation, as it's called, the Windrush was a boat. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to be like fully
no historian,
right?
No historians in the building.
Windrush was the name of a boat that basically carried a bunch of Caribbean immigrants over to the UK post World War II. Kitchener went over, and he had a song, London is the place for me, and he sang it and for BBC and whatnot. The Windrush generation went across, helped to rebuild the UK after World War II, after all the destruction of World War II. And as a result, they were allowed to stay there. But then recently, a few years ago, the UK kind of started to push them out and more or less started to make things hard for them to get, I think, citizenship or something to that effect. Or those who got citizenship already, they were kind of cancelling it or something. You know what? UK embassy, don't quote me, right? But I know that basically they were like, hey, like pushing them out. And as a result, Hero, at the time I think we were in the UK, touring in the UK, and it was a big hot topic because it was like, well, all of this stuff is what Hero dealt with. Ulric and they were also part of that generation. Although Ulric would have thought he wasn't going with the Windrush necessarily, but he was part of that whole movement.
Well, okay, Nickolai, we wouldn't tell them anymore, but they certainly have.
I would encourage anybody, go and research the Windrush generation and the Windrush in period, that whole thing.
And in that case, you have so many reasons to tune into TTT, and that was just one more. So many facets to it, so much representation, and so many reasons to have Nickolai Salcedo back on set with us. Always beautiful in the Morning Show. But you want to tune in tomorrow night at 9 here on TTT as we will introduce you to a hero. Guys, this is the Now Morning Show. We are still celebrating breast cancer, and so while we thank Nickolai for joining us this morning, our next guest is a hero of sorts too. Stick around to find out who and how. We'll be back.
This is Ulric Cross. This is Ulric Cross.
We changed the course of the war.
Poster boy, pin-up boy, handsome Ulric Cross. Mr. Padmore, yours truly. We're looking for people who will follow through with these ideas. The United States of Africa.